Welcome once again to Crazy Canuck Truckin' Podcast. I appreciate everybody tuning in and listening to us once again. We have a very special guest coming on with us today, and I want to remind you to like and share and send in reviews and send emails. You can send us notes either through the podcast applications or through YouTube, or you can send to crazycanucktruckin@gmail.com. And that will all be in the show notes, so it'll be easy for everybody. And we're going to get right into it today. Size Matters is taking a little bit of time off again today. She has something she has to deal with that came up at the last minute. So we are going to do what truckers do, and we're just going to motor on, shift into another gear and get going. So welcome to our show, Dan. Thank you very much for coming on. Tell everyone who you are and what you do.
Okay, I'm truck driver, obviously, and drive BC, Alberta, Western Canada. Spent some time going Ontario, Manitoba, but now just exclusively BC, Alberta. Trying to stay home a little closer with my family, a little bit more guaranteed, or not guaranteed, but a little more structured program and a little more structured time off. And then I also manage a message board and website, bctrucker.com.
Very cool. How long have you been in trucking?
How long have I been in trucking? 1990, or mid-90s, 1995, 1994 is when I started, got my license and started.
Was that something you did right out of high school, or how does the timeline work for you?
No, I tried doing sales. I tried doing a couple other things. I dropped out of high school, and I was what you might call a black sheep, a troublemaker, a problematic child, getting into trouble, doing stupid stuff. Got asked to find a different residence when I was 15. So I, left my parents' house with help at 15 and and tried to figure out my own way, and ended up going back to school and spending a little time in a private school that I funded myself while I was, working full time, and then tried to do 11 and 12 through a private school, and then eventually didn't graduate, dropped out, and bounced around different odd jobs here and there, and eventually went and talked to my parents about, hey, what can we do? Like, is there something we could do about helping me get my license? And, my dad was a truck driver, used to pick me up from daycare in his truck, right? And, working for a local company in Vancouver. And so he said he'd help me get my class 1 driver's license. And we went on from there. And that was about, I guess, 21, 22 when that happened. And then I'll be 52 this year, and been doing it ever since.
Wow. So what you talk about having a message board. What started you in that, and what was the goal of the message board?
Well, back in about between 2006 and 2008, now that you refreshed my memory a little, I was looking to purchase a new vehicle or a new truck, right? A new class 8, tandem axle tractor. And at that time, the fuel prices were starting to really climb, and, had already started to really climb, and people were trying to get fuel surcharges, and it was unclear. And some people were getting small fuel surcharges. So the only thing we could control at that time is, fluids going into our truck, fuel, right? And to try and get better fuel mileage. And, you start looking online for fuel mileage, and it's, a lot of guys down in Texas or back east, even if you're sticking to Canada, guys that run across the prairies, or guys in Ontario had very different specifications on how to get improved fuel economy. And it just wasn't applicable to Western Canada. So a friend of mine said, hey, why don't you set up a message board or a website and see if you can get some information that way? And that's how it all started.
Wow. That's actually, I was just telling you earlier, that's where I remember you from first. You were one of the first truckers I knew of that had a website or had a blog or had something on social media. There was no, well, Facebook was around then, but Twitter wasn't around that I can recall. You know, it was just websites and blogs. And that's where I first ran into you. And that's, it was refreshing to have somebody that is a driver, knows how to speak his mind clearly, and makes sense with what he's saying. You know,
Some
there's
days.
some
Don't
days.
ask my wife. She'll argue with you about that, but you know, that's
Yeah,
just part of the travel, right?
yeah. No, it's pretty cool that you are actually somebody I looked up to, still look up to, as somebody that has started all of this. That we're not just, we're not just people that can mash gears together, right? We're
Well, a lot of problem with the trucking industry is when the general public thinks of the trucking industry, they're thinking of the guys that are, sitting in the truck stop, right? That are aggravated, that a lot of times guys just gone tarped a load of lumber or loaded a flat deck or hand bombed a load of freight into a dry van and are dirty, they're covered in dirt, they've been out for 3 days, they're on their way home, you know. And so instead of having a shower or taking the time to have a shower or doing whatever, they decide to stop at a truck stop, get some fuel, then book it to get home, right? If they're going to make it home that night, they don't see, the public doesn't always see the truck driver that's at home, got a wife and 2 kids, owns a home, owns vehicles. They don't see that, right? It's the guy that's, while he's working is what gets seen, right? And it's, so there's a huge misconception, I think, in the trucking industry of what people think a truck driver is and what actually a truck driver is, right?
yeah, yeah. I know that sometimes I mentioned this recently that sometimes the biggest compliment I can get is when somebody comes to me and says, "You don't look like a truck driver." I'm
Well,
like,
exactly, right?
yeah. I'm like, yes. Speaking
Yeah,
of
I got.
looks, speaking of looks, the last time we met, you're probably twice the person you are now, and
Well,
I don't
a
know
third
quite how much.
more.
Tell us about this. Because
Okay.
you're for people that aren't going to be watching video, you're a fairly tall guy. You've always been husky, and you were starting to carry a few extra pounds. Not
Well,
what I
I
would consider morbidly obese or even that chunky, but go
well,
ahead.
according to the doctor, I was morbidly obese.
Okay.
Well, I was up to 270 pounds,
Okay.
and so which was probably another 30 or 40 pounds bigger than I was the last time that when you were here having breakfast, right? But
Yeah.
so I was struggling to walk around my truck and trailer. I'd go once around the truck and trailer and I'd be sweating and huffing and puffing and be out of wind. And and with my health issues over the past 20, 25 years, and you know, I have children, that I need to try and keep up with, a teenager, 2 teenagers now. As of a couple months ago, I got 2 teenagers running around the house and trying to keep up with them. So it was just time for me to start taking better care of myself and caring what I looked at. So just started out portion control and packing all the food that I would need for the week in the truck, right? And instead of sugar drinks, just drinking water, and just started noticing a difference in how I was feeling, right? I found I was getting better sleep and not so stressed out and tired by the end of the week. And by the end of the week, I was still able to, spend time with my family and do things, as opposed to just coming home and laying on the couch for a day and a half or 2 days before it was time to go back to work again. And, as the weight dropped off and I started doing, I would start doing a little bit of exercise, right? Instead of walking around the truck and trailer twice, I'd walk around, um, I'd walk around the or instead of walking around the truck and trailer once, I'd walk around it 2 times and then 3 times. And then I'd walk around the entire warehouse, that I was at, or walk around the customer's warehouse, right? And just do a little bit more, I would get in my mindset that, there's no point in trying anything, because there's no way I'm going to be able to dedicate 3 hours or an hour a day or 2 hours a day or 2.5 hours a day to exercise. And once I got that out of my head and realized that if you just do 15 minutes more than you did yesterday, or 15 minutes, burn a little more calories off during the day and take in a few less calories over the day, it makes a difference. And I found that as the weight started dropping off, it would just get more and more and more, and I'd be doing more, and I'd want to do more, right?
Yeah. It's never like, did you have that mindset? And I know I've had that mindset. You want to go from 0 to 60 in 4 seconds flat, right? So
Absolutely.
you want to go from whatever weight you're at to your target weight within, the next 2 weeks. Or go from walking around your trailer once to being able to run a marathon. Did
Yes.
you ever struggle with that mentality? And because it really sounds like you took, just started doing things, just a little bit here, a little bit there, and just chipping away at it.
Yeah, well, it was like a whole, like I pretty much transformed everything, right? Like I would take, I mean, you know what it's like. You're driving down the road and you're hungry, right? Or you need some sort of, blood sugar adjustment or whatever. Not that I'm diabetic or anything, but you get to that point where you've been up too long, drinking too much coffee, not eating healthy. So you start getting jittery, you need some level of intake. So I'd have, within reach of the driver's seat, a bag of chips, and of course, like, you don't get the small bag of chips, you get the family size bag of chips, right?
It's
Or there'd be
cheaper per pound.
well, exactly. Or I'd have a package of cookies, or a couple of chocolate bars just in the overhead compartment in the Freightliner there. And
Yeah.
so I found that if I just didn't take that stuff with me, was fine. I didn't miss it, right? And I substituted like fruit, like cut up fruit or cut up vegetables, right? My wife Trista is a huge help in prepping food and doing a whole bunch of stuff for the following week, right? And yeah, it was just a little bit, right? Cut out the sugar drinks, portion control, eat more often, right? Like less amounts more often, and get a little bit of exercise. And it made a huge difference. And then I guess in the fall of 2019, I bought a bicycle. And the first time I got on the bicycle, I went around the block. And when I got back to the house, my legs were so rubbery, I couldn't even get off the bicycle. I had to sit on the bicycle for 10 or 15 minutes, leaning up against the wall of the house, so until I could get control of my legs back enough, to get off of the bike. And then last year, by the end of summer, I could ride 100 kilometers in a pretty much nonstop, stop for a water break or if I had to go to the bathroom, but do 100 kilometers in like 4 to 5 hours, right? And yeah,
You had a challenge on for that, right?
yeah. There's a Great Canadian Cycle Challenge where the Six Kids Foundation in Ontario there collects donations and for families of children and children living with cancer and through cancer treatment. So I kind of just stumbled upon that on Facebook last year in the spring, and contacted my employer and contacted a couple different groups about getting sponsored, and and ended up was able to raise what I think it was just over $2,500, just $2,500. And then in August, I rode 300 kilometers in the month of August, on my days off, right? And yeah, it was a lot of fun,
So VIP is asking a question, and she says, do you listen to audiobooks while biking or just enjoy the ride?
I have a real issue with distractions while I'm riding. I used to ride to work back when I was 18, 19 years old, right? And that was about a 35-kilometer round trip, or 35 kilometers one way, right? So I'd ride to work, before I was a trucker, work, and then ride home at the end of the day, right? I was a security guard at the time. But no, I find I need to focus on driving or on riding the bike. And I enjoy just being able just to clear my mind, sit back, go for a ride, not have to think about anything, not have to try and concentrate on anything. And yeah, if I have a trouble, I just use it to clear my mind and just have fun and enjoy the time away from everything, right?
Yeah, we need time to unplug away from all the distractions and all the stuff,
Yeah.
and just even listening to music is not really unplugged. Just
No.
turn everything off
Yeah.
and listen to your own heartbeat or your own thoughts, and
Yeah.
you know,
And I was struggling. I was having some mental issues, right? Like I was getting home and I was really aggressive, not to the point of physicality, right? But I was on my kids, you're doing it wrong, not, knowing that they had to figure out their own way, but saying like, you're doing it wrong, or why you're doing it that way. And I do the same with Trista, like my wife, right? It was causing a lot of friction in the household, and I needed some sort of distraction where I could just go out, calm down after work, or, if I was having a rough day, go out and just ride around and not have to focus or deal with anything. Go do 25, 30, 50 kilometers, come back and, have all that pent up aggression, take it out on the pedals, right?
yeah,
And not so much on the family, right? And and help me realize that, they got their things that they need to do. And, I can't, it's not my place to be in control of everything, right? There's stuff that I need to look after, including myself, and there's stuff that they need to look after. And if they need my help, or if they need some assistance in it, they'll come to me, and then we'll deal with it at that point, right? I didn't need to be sticking my nose into everything that was going on all the time.
yeah. I've met your wife. I think it's safer for you as well to not be aggressive with her.
Oh yeah, well, she's a black belt too, right? Like her and both my boys. One's a third-degree black belt, one's a second-degree black belt, and she's a first-degree black belt. So you got to mind my P's and Q's, right?
Yeah, black belt in
In Taekwondo.
Taekwondo. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, with the American Taekwondo Association.
okay,
So they branched up into Canada here a number of years ago, right? And so my kids got involved with that. We went in and had an interview with the instructors of the academy that my kids went to, and it came across as more of a whole life approach, right? Whereas they would teach like stuff that I wasn't home all the time to help them with, right? Like how to work with others, integrity, communication, honesty, values that most societies and every society holds. But some groups, or some of us struggle to figure out how to instill that upon our children, right? So we felt, my oldest one wanted to be a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. So with the nunchucks and the staff and that stuff, right, with the martial arts weapons. So he that got him involved in that regard, right? So
yeah,
over the past 5-6 years, we were going to tournaments in BC, Washington, Oregon, Arkansas, Nevada, Montana, Idaho. Yeah, he was traveling all over the place. He was having a lot of fun.
yeah,
As a family, we'd have our little travel trailer and load everybody up, and off to the tournament we'd go, or we'd fly somewhere and get a hotel room for a couple of days and fly back. It was just break from the mundane every day, which it all kind of went sideways there March of last year when the world went upside down for a while there.
yeah. Those times going to different things with family, those are memories that are so important.
Well, and few and far between in our industry, right? Like
Yeah,
there's just you're under the pressure to generate revenue, right? Got to make a buck, got to pay the bills, got to look after the look after, paying for the stuff in the household, car payments, truck payments, this payment, that payment, getting, stuff set up for your kids to go to university. And, and sometimes the other stuff gets left behind, right? You get home, you don't feel like doing nothing, the last thing most of us want to do after being on the road all week is to hop into our pickup truck, hook up the travel trailer, and go driving for 3 hours, or go sit by a lake and be surrounded by a bunch of tourists and commuters, people that have commuted, and you were just wanted to
Just
strangle.
avoiding.
You've just been screaming out through the windshield to say, hey, you dummy, what are you doing? And now you want to go sit with them for 2 days? And yeah, no, I'm good.
I've been in my pickup and I'm like, what are all these tourists doing? And I'm like, wait a minute, I am a tourist right now.
Yeah, well, yeah. So we're lucky. We were lucky up until this all started. We have a place down in Washington in a gated community that we can go to, right? And it's an RV, like a recreational vehicle property, but it's not like an RV park, right? You got a little space around you. It's not like you're all lined up,
Yeah.
like a trailer park, right? It's spaced out a little bit, and a lake and mini golf and that sort of thing. So we had that up until this pandemic thing went all screwy. But it's just another, I could hop in the pickup, and all I got to do is make it the 90 minutes from the terminal down to where it is, or it's 90 minutes from the house too, right? So
Yeah.
And it's down there, so you don't have to hook anything up, and you just go down, turn on the power, or turn on the water, and unlock the door and kick your feet up and crack a beer, right?
Yeah. So, going back to when you're doing the cycling and you chose the charity of sick kids for cancer, tell our listeners why that is important to you, or why did you pick that one specifically?
Well, funny enough, you know how Facebook algorithms are, and it just starts spitting things towards you that they think you might be interested in. My parents, my father passed away from cancer, but before, and my mom is dealing with it now. But back when I was in my early 20s, I myself got diagnosed with cancer, Hodgkin's disease, which is cancer in your lymph nodes. And so I went through 8 months of treatment with that. And then after I got married, and right around after my first son was born, after I got married, I got cancer again, testicular cancer, right? Went and dealt with that with a partial orchidectomy and chemotherapy. And then a year and a half after that, or 2 years after that, my second son was born, and then I got diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease again, and that turned into a stem cell transplant and high dose chemotherapy and a bunch of time in hospital. And so after all that, and I started, it was time to go back to work, and so that's been 15 years now, and I haven't really done anything, to give back to that community. I mean, and now I figured, combined with me trying to get healthier and get in better shape, it's just kind of, I think the charity kind of picked me and said, hey, why don't you have a look at this? And, I looked at it and it seemed like a great charity, right? Because I mean, I got 2 kids, and I couldn't imagine having to go through what I've got friends who have had children with cancer, and it's just there's no reason, for the billions of dollars that have been raised for it. I mean, I don't understand why we can't figure it out, but as long as kids are dealing with it, like, I think we need to do what we can to fix it, or at least make it as comfortable as we can for the families that are having to deal with it without them having to shoulder the burden of huge costs of, you live outside of a major center in Canada, and to get effective treatment, you have to travel, right? Kids are going to, whether it's Sunnybrook or the Children's Hospital in Toronto, or Six Kids Hospital in Toronto, or to Children's Hospital in Vancouver. Like, I mean, if you're not living in these major centers, kids are struggling and having a real, and their families are struggling to get them to and from treatment centers and resources that they need in order to get through it.
Yeah. So VIP is asking, so when you were starting your information boards online, that was probably right around the time you were fighting cancer as well?
Um, yeah, in between, like
Or just,
I think
yeah.
yeah, it's all a big blur, right? For a lot of years. And I mean, you're just doing things that you could to cope, right? And get through. Yeah. I didn't keep a super timeline about anything. No, I think let's see, the last treatment I had was about 15 years ago, I think. So it would have been, yeah, right in about the same time after we got them. Yeah, it's
See, VIP is probably better with math than you and me together. So,
hey, but if you need me to transfer kilograms to pounds, or pounds to kilograms, or kilometers to miles, I'm on it.
oh yeah, 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 all the trucker things.
Yeah. Or figuring out what my revenue is per mile.
Yeah, yeah. It just as an aside, it's kind of funny, like I'll be talking with other buddies in trucking, and I'll talk about miles per hour, miles per gallon, and then I'll talk about liters per 100 kilometers, and then I, will switch back to Canadian miles per gallon, and we just go on and just talk, and we automatically know all these different conversions, and it's like it's funny when people listen to us. It's like you're just talking in three different metrics. It's like, yeah,
But I mean, don't ask me anything legal, or nothing major legal. Don't hold me to anything legal or medical. I only know what I know, and it's
yeah, yeah. So um, it's really amazing what you've been through in your life, and the fighting cancer 3 times, losing one parent so far, having another parent dealing with it, and you know, dropping all the weight yourself and working to get healthier. Um, what's the if you talk to other truck drivers about their health, what would kind of be like the first advice you'd want to give other truck drivers?
well, just cut down on sugar drinks would be the
Yeah,
first thing I did. I also have in the cab, I have a set of adjustable dumbbells, right? And a set of resistance bands, right?
yeah,
And you know, stop to go out and take a leak, and I, walk around the trailer once and spend 5 or 10 minutes with the resistance bands or the dumbbells, right? Or before I go to bed, and I got a Fitbit tracker, right? So tracking my activity during the day, tracking my sleep, and then, yeah, there you go. Yeah. And track it, and I do keep track of my caloric intake, right? Through a different app. And it's, you look at it, it's like, wow, there's some days when I first started where it was like, wow, 1,200 steps in a day, really? And you're thinking, I had to have done more than that, right? And you know no, I didn't. And so you start making an effort, right? And okay, well, let's see if I can get it to 3,000 a day or 1,500 a day. And you know yeah, just, and with also with the Fitbit tracker, it gives you that the resting heart rate, right? So when I started tracking my fitness, my resting heart rate was 82, 83, 85 beats per minute, right? Which is, I mean, it's not crazy. There's guys that are considerably higher, but I mean, now I've got it down to about 61, 62 beats per minute, right? You know, and another thing I found out, like with some of the fitness giants, like these fitness, what do they call them, franchises. You know, I got a membership at one of the fitness franchises. Well, when you get to a terminal or when you get to a destination, you're looking to have a shower, you're looking to have something to eat, right? So I would find that I'd go to the gym instead of going to the truck stop and parking in the back and have a dinner and a shower and going to bed. I found it was just as easy to go up to the gym, go in, work out for half an hour, 45 minutes, have a shower at the gym where you know it's going to be clean. You know what some of the Cardlocks in BC and Alberta are like, right? They're not exactly always the best maintained and cleanest places to facilitate washing yourself. So
Wait,
I'd
wait,
go.
wait. They say they're there for us. You know, they're doing their best to try and help us, Dan. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
I was at one. You know where I'm going with this. I was at one of the Cardlocks in Edmonton, and I took pictures of. I lifted up the mat, and I took pictures, and it was covered in dirt and mud. And I went back, and I left a little doodle in the underneath on the mud, and I went back a month later. I would go. I was there every week, right? But I didn't go back there for another month, and looked under there again, and my little doodle still hadn't changed at all. And I mean, it wasn't a card lock, right? I get it, but it's a, or it wasn't a truck stop per se, but it was a card lock where, they monitored and maintained their bathrooms regularly. And I'm like, wow.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least
But
once a
yeah,
year they look at something.
absolutely. And so I found it was just way better, and, if you go to if you go to one of these brand name truck stops, they'll charge you 7, 12, $15 for a shower, right?
Yeah,
And you start having a shower every second day, or every day, or even just once a week. I mean, that's $60 a month. You know, if you get a gym membership, and 15 bucks, 25, $30 a month, $60 a month, $70 a month, that's still cheaper than having to go to a full on truck stop to pay for a shower. I mean, you bring your own towel. I bring my own towel anyway. But I mean, so you get
yeah,
the benefit. If you don't feel like working out, you don't have to work out. You can just go in and have a shower and leave again. Like, there's nothing saying you have to go into the gym and work out, right? But
yeah,
you get to the point where you feel like, well, I'm here anyway. I may as well go work out, walk on the treadmill on the elliptical for half an hour, or 40 minutes, or 20 minutes, or 15 minutes, and then go have a shower, right? It was just, yeah, it was just little. And as the weight came off, also last year, one of my goals was, I like road cycling, right? Is the cycling I do is on road cycling. So you see road cyclists with spandex pants and the shirts and that, right? And I used to wear that when I was younger. And at 270 pounds or 245 pounds, there was no way I was, you know, shoehorning myself into a pair of spandex cycling shorts to go cycling. I mean, not that anyone wants to see that now, but I'm pretty sure at 260, 270 pounds, nobody was wanting to see that, not even me, right? So that was another goal. I would just set little goals for me to get down to where I wanted to be, right? Told myself that after I got down to 180, 185 in that range, then I'd consider or think about getting back with proper cycling gear and riding gear, right? So
yeah. What are you at now? Have you
185.
broken 185? Wow.
Yeah.
So 90
Yeah.
pounds.
Yeah. I was down to just under 180. And then, with the more weights and the exercising I'm doing, so I'm, muscle's heavier than fat is, right? So I'm starting to put muscle back on, and I've kind of calmed down on being so, like right now, like breakfast, I'm having blueberries, zero fat yogurt, and like a third of a cup of raisin bran, right? And then for dinner, most, like during the week in the truck, I'm having chicken, like a baked or rotisserie chicken, and salad, right? And that's pretty much it. And then I'll have like some protein snacks or vegetable snacks that I eat, when I get hungry while I drive overnight, right? So when I get up, or when I'm working at night and I need a break or stop for a 30-minute break or whatever, because there's no sense in stopping for a break if you're not going to stop for 30 minutes anymore, right? So you stop for a 30-minute break and have, some, what do I have? Beef jerky that I've made here at home, or, you know, smoked brisket or smoked salmon that I've made at home. And that's the other thing. I try to cut out most of the processed food, right? Which is not as easy. It sounds easy to do, just don't eat processed food, right? But until you start thinking about it, and you go into a truck stop, and what's the first thing that's front and center for you? It's fried chicken and taquitos and corn dogs and pizza, right? Which is all processed to the hilt, right? So
Yeah. You're doing a little bit at a time in those moments where you might even just be doing nothing. And that's one of the big keys to improving your health, is to just do do these little things and just keep doing little things, and eventually, you starts making a difference.
I've just been, it just found me last year, but yeah, I'm doing it again this year, and started up a team like Canadian Truckers Care Team, right? Where people can, if they join up for the cycle challenge and they search out a team, and, just give them a group of people, that are kind of doing the same thing, right? That they can bounce ideas off of. And
Oh,
that's the one.
that's the one. Yeah. So um, we'll put that in the show notes as well, so people can go there and take a look at it.
Yeah, there's a group on Facebook too, and a lot of fun, a lot of banter back and forth, a lot of people helping each other, giving each other ideas on how to raise money, and for the and different tips and different help on cycling and stuff like that. Because I mean, to be honest with you, when I was cycling before, it was pedals and handlebars and tires, and that was it. I got back into cycling, and there's you can use your phone to track your distance, and how much power you're putting on the pedals and how fast you're going. And it's
Yeah.
the technology. And I mean, well, I guess the same in trucking, right? And everything, but the technology in cycling has just gone absolutely insane. And I was so far behind by,
Yeah.
25, 30 years in between stints on a bicycle. It just went, whoo.
Yeah.
It's kind of, or I got another Twitter account and Facebook account that says fit_truckers, and that I kind of started up not that long ago, just to kind of give tips and stuff to people that are having trouble or looking for some sort of help or boost, or some ideas, or a different way of looking at trying to lose weight, right?
Yeah.
Or even just trying, not even if you're not necessarily trying to lose weight, just trying to improve health, right? Yeah, working towards, helping other guys, because I mean, it's a struggle, and you know what it's like, right? You get the end of your day, and all you want to do is have a burger and fries and crawl into the bunk and go to bed, or grab a chocolate bar, bag of chips, click on the TV for 15 minutes, half an hour, set the sleep timer, and roll over and wait for
A VIP says, ask this question. So, spending time for yourself has brought you closer to your family and community, like as far as getting healthier, and that's actually brought you closer to your family because you're able to do things and be a better person at the
it,
same time.
well, yeah, like helping myself mentally, dealing with stuff that, having the ability to deal with my stuff on my terms, just going out. I wasn't, you get rolled up or balled up in your own, you start micro focusing on stuff that's going on, and you get consumed by it. And my personality, I have a very addictive personality. So, and very, some would say hyper at times, right? Like very hyper focused, right? You get an idea in your head and you just drill down that idea, right? And just, got the blinders on and don't pay attention to nothing else. So yeah, spending, a little bit of time for myself has been huge in, having not necessarily more time with my family, but better focused time and better, that's it, quality time. That's right. Exactly.
There's something that's been getting a lot of press lately here in Canada, and you have shared some thoughts with me on that, and that is with the Kamloops residential school finding the bodies of, right now they're saying 215 children buried on the property.
Yeah. Yeah. As I'm First Nations status Indian, and this is nothing new. First Nations people have been complaining about this for decades. As long as I can remember, this is the secret that would get spoken of all the time. There's nothing new here. What's new is the Indigenous community finally being able to provide for themselves the resources to look for what they already knew and were being told wasn't happening. And now that they've managed to acquire the resources and the ability to do this, they're reaffirming what's already been known since as long as anyone who's alive today can remember, right? And I mean, there's people that we know that may not say so, they may not discuss it, but there's people our age that went to these residential schools. There's people our age that were abused physically, mentally, sexually in these situations. And yeah, I was lucky. The last residential school closed in 1996. And, so there's a lot of people in our age group, and younger and, a little bit older that are living with this knowledge and have been, with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, in 2015, they estimated there's 4,000 to 6,000 children that were murdered or died of illnesses. There was in these residential schools, that was at that time. Estimates are way higher than that now, but they were doing, the federal government was doing malnutrition studies with children in residential schools where they were not starving them, but not giving them enough nutrition to sustain themselves, to see what the effects would be on them long term. There's all kinds of stuff like that that's been going on in these residential schools that First Nations people have been talking about and complaining about and bringing up for decades, and nothing's, they've been pushed aside or pushed down. And the goal originally of the residential schools was to remove all Indian First Nations languages, ceremonies, and heritage, and the goal was to do it in one generation. If they removed all the children from their parents and put them in these schools, they felt that they could, and forbid them from speaking their language, performing their customs, and only having minimal time with their with their families, that would basically clear out any native, and what the government at that time when they started the residential schools in the late 1800s, it would remove all the savagery from Canada. And yeah, it's atrocious and heartbreaking, and I've had the benefit of not having to go through that directly, but I mean, I guarantee if you know First Nations people, you know of people that have been through this residential school, and you've worked beside people that have been through these residential schools, and we've gone to school with people that have gone through these residential schools. And I mean, yeah, First Nations people weren't even considered Canadian until I believe it was 1960. They couldn't vote. They were wards of the state, not allowed to vote, not Canadian citizens, unless you could apply to vote, but you had to denounce your status, turn your back on your band, and then you would be allowed to vote in Canadian federal elections. You start looking into the Indian Act of I think it was 1867 or 1897, and subsequent amendments to the Indian Act in the late 40s and the early 60s. And we never learned this in school, right? Like when we went to school, we never learned, I don't know about you, but I never learned about residential schools from in school. We were, my biggest takeaway from learning about Native history in school is there was something somewhere that says the only good Indian's a dead Indian and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And that was and the Indians were the problem. That was what was taught in elementary school and high school when I went through into the mid late 70s and early 80s.
Yeah.
And it's just atrocious and heartbreaking, and to the point where my family didn't attempt to get their status until the late 60s, early 70s, right? Just because of the discrimination and the government. Oh, it's just so frustrating to hear about and talk about, and and to know that there's so many people that our age that just
I grew up near Toronto,
yeah
and of course Easterners have never really looked well upon Westerners to start with. They seem to forget that there's a lot of Indian bands in the East as well. But I remember in history class and different things, then we're always told how savage the natives were and all these things, and I'm like, well, wait a minute here, like why are you calling them savage? Well, they have these rituals and different things, and I'm like, but they knew there was a creator of some kind. They worshiped that creator. They looked after the land. They paid attention to stuff like that. They had an honor code that you stuck by.
well, even still with with this residential school in Kamloops with the found children, the 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 band there, they want they're not looking to blame anybody. They're still wanting to. They're inviting outside people in to learn about what their perception is. They're inviting outside people in to get educated, to find out how that affect them, and how that and I got people even in the last week that have come to me and says, well, all these status Indians and First Nations are looking for money. They're looking for money. And that's no, that's not what it's about. Go to Kamloops when they're having these. They're wanting to educate. They want when Europeans first landed in North America, the native North America, native Canadian Americans, back then natives in North America, brought them in, helped them survive, taught them different ways, how to, best practices for traveling across the country, best practices for living, how to plant, where to plant, what to look for, what they could eat, what they shouldn't eat,
Yep.
learn, helping, to educate them, right? And continue that through all the treaty processes, all, the herding of of native people onto reservations, all of that stuff, continue to try and help and educate and, teach, for lack of a better term, settlers, you know, how they did it and how they found what worked best for them at that time, right? And yeah, it's just
Yeah. When you look at like we have a road here in Winnipeg called Bishop Grandin, and that's named after Bishop Vitaly Grandin, and he wrote this in 1875. We instill in them a pronounced distaste for the native life so that they will be humiliated when reminded of their origin. When they graduate from our institutions, the children have lost everything native except their blood. And this was written in 1875. And it's amazing to me that even after a century plus of trying to get the native out of the natives still have a lot of their they have their languages, they have their uh, man, I can't, their culture is still so much there. Like the residential schools failed miserably in trying to eradicate natives, failed absolutely miserably, but they really did a ton of damage. But it's just amazing that even after all this time, there still is so much the natives have held on. And I know in talking with other people that they always hid it from authorities, and they kept control over that, hid it from the authorities, and I just I I have I'm told I have a little bit of native blood in me, as people from generations of Canadians, like all of the first people here or people that have been in Canada for more than a few generations. There's a lot of them that have native blood of some kind somewhere down the line,
yeah.
right? That's just the way things are. But it always bothered me that we always looked at the natives as the only good Indian is a dead Indian. You know, me and my buddy, when we were in high school, we idolized Geronimo, and that just horrified other people in school. Like, how could you idolize such a guy? You know?
You go watch you watch like Western shows, like, the Lone Ranger or different Western shows from that time, Gunsmoke and different Western movies, and it's cringeworthy television, like in
Yeah,
in the in the current climate and environment. It's you ugh, it's tough to watch, right?
yeah, yeah.
Um,
But yet, every expedition, every explorer
mhm.
was not led by themselves. It's
No,
like I hate to hear about these people that climb Mount Everest. No, you didn't climb Mount Everest. Yeah, I mean, okay, you walked up there and all the Sherpas carried all your stuff
carried
for
all
you,
your stuff. Yeah, oh yeah.
and showed you how to get up there and how to get down. Like, no, you didn't conquer anything. You followed in the footsteps of somebody else. And the same with all the Europeans and everybody that's come to North America. Uh, we've followed in the steps of the natives. And when it comes to history, we should be talking about all of history. When we hear about World War II, we hardly ever hear from the German side of things why they wanted to go to war in the first place. It was just they were bad, Hitler was bad, you know, and Hitler was bad. But there's reasons why Germany ended up going to war. But people don't want to, they only want to talk about the stuff that suits their agenda because, as they say,
But I mean, that's
the victors write the history, right?
yes. But you get that all throughout history, right? Like,
Yeah.
whether it's that or the, US involvement in World War One, depending on who you talk to, you never hear, like you don't hear the Indian side. You don't, like you said, you don't hear the German side. We don't hear, the South Asian side of what's going on worldwide now, right?
Yeah.
All we're given to, in some, even like with the Israel Palestine thing, we don't hear, we get certain excerpts from both sides, but we don't ever, unless you're in that situation, you don't, we can't, they just, like you say, they don't give you reasonable information from both sides.
Yeah. And I,
But I
I
mean, even you look at the news groups in North America, right? It's, you got the far left news, you got the far right news, you got the, there's no news. I've found is turned into mostly opinion and, very little fact. They give you the facts, but then they feel necessary to give you, opinion on it, right? Which is a little bit frustrating. If you know, I I want the information and let me form an opinion on it, right?
yeah,
Not give me your side of the information, right? Just give me the information.
the facts.
I'm
Just the
reasonably
facts.
intelligent. I'll, you know, positives, negatives from both sides of it, and I'll make, my own decision, right?
Yeah.
But we
Yeah.
all, there's groups that think everyone needs to think the same, right? Everyone needs to have the same agenda. Everyone needs to have the same goals. Everyone has to have the same desires, right? And it just doesn't work that way. We can all have different ideas and different thoughts and different processes, and you know, we don't have to agree, but we don't have to fight about it all the time either, right? It's just like, oh,
Yeah. It's like it's become so much more that you either follow everybody's opinion or you have to all subscribe to one thing. And if you're not, then you're just bad.
well, you go back to the previous presidential election, right? Not this most recent one with President Biden, but you go back to the previous one, and all the polls had said that the vote was going to go one way, right? And it went way the other way, right?
Yeah.
Not that we have a dog in the fight, right? It was just you watched, right? I mean, we get all kinds of U.S. news up here, right? So everyone's going, this is the way the election is going to go. This is the way the election is going to go. This is the way the election is going to go. And then on election day, it's like, well, that's not the way the election went, right? Why? Because the people who were feeling one way, when they got contacted by the pollsters they're not saying, people don't feel comfortable necessarily expressing their political opinion. They're like, okay, we'll let government and these polling places and all the smart people, you know, think what they want and get the, put out whatever they want. And when push comes to shove, it's might be different, right? And it's, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
World's a crazy place.
Let's finish off with some story of your own, humorous or um, if you're sitting around a campfire shooting the breeze with some friends and they want to hear about some trucking story that was momentous for you, what comes to mind first?
Hmm. Does it have to be legal?
No, no, there's no statute of limitations with this podcast. Nobody knows who we are anyway.
Oh, there you go. That's right. We're anonymous. Um, so I used to drive back and forth to California, right? And you know, trip a week, right? Down to California, back up. And so I would, you know, we'd leave Saturday, get to LA Monday morning, right? And then over to where we were going to reload. Sometimes we'd have 10 or 12 pickups, sometimes we'd have, one straight shot back, right? So I had to be home. I didn't have time to be goofing off down in the US. So they sent me to Nogales, Arizona, to load cross-border produce, right? You know, I don't know if they still do it, but used to they'd back up a Mexican truck up on one side and a Canadian truck up on the other side of the border, and they just cross-dock the stuff straight across. You know, you'd wait for the FDA to come in and check everything. So, and I get cross-docked, right? Head out of there, and I'm like, they want the produce up here sooner than later. Straight shot, boom. Nogales, Arizona to Vancouver, British Columbia. Stopped in Medford, Oregon for fuel and a bowl of soup and a shower, and the rest of the way straight up there. Just, you know, stopped once to redo the logbook once back when we could do that before we were digitally enhanced. And yeah, just dumb stuff like that, man. Dumb stuff that you'd never. I'm lucky if I can make it all the way from Vancouver to Edmonton without having to stop for a 2-3 hour nap, right?
Yeah.
Just different times, eh?
Mighty almighty, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. 29 hours, I think. 31 hours.
I know a buddy of mine, he got stopped by a DOT, and as the DOT's walking up to his truck, he's talking to himself, and he's so tired, he's kind of out of it. He's like saying to himself, like, what do I need? Logbook A, B, or C? I'm trying to remember which logbook is the right one to show the guy. And here the guy's standing right outside the window, and he says, well, you better figure it out because I'm right here. And he's like, uh-oh. Can I see those other ones too? Oh, no, I only have one logbook.
It was a different time, right? 30 years ago, different time.
It was, yeah.
Oof. I don't miss it.
No, I don't either. Not one little bit. It makes for interesting stories.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the attitude then was 12,000 miles is good, 13,000 miles is better, 15,000 miles is much, much better, you know, and I keep trying to tell people nowadays, like, no, that's not the way you look at it. How much money am I making per mile?
Yeah.
I want more money per mile. I don't necessarily want more miles to give me more money, you know?
I've been very lucky with that, like in the last, well, since the company, you know, what I'm working for now, since I moved to the company I'm at now, it's unionized, right? Like, so owner operator is unionized, which I don't think they're allowed to, they do in the US. So like, I don't think owner operators down there are permitted to be unionized, but up here they're, you know, we're classified as dependent contractors, unionized, collective bargaining, medical and dental benefits, you know, hourly wages, everything structured. We know we're getting raises, you know, bargain for raises every 3 to 5 years, depending on the contracts.
Yeah.
When I started with this company, my whole world was different, right? It took me a long time to kind of slow down and say, oh, I don't need to be bam, 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 and go, right? I could just kind of kick back and, you know, what a difference. What a difference.
It's nice. I'm at a company where it's not quite like that, but it's better than I've ever had. And, you know, like the boss always says he doesn't like doing stuff for free. And so he doesn't expect us to do things for free. I spent the weekend in Montreal. I get paid for sitting there. I don't have to wait 24 hours. I don't have to, you know, like I get paid. Simple.
It makes a huge difference, right? Like I found that when I started feeling like I was appreciated, feeling like I was getting paid, feeling like, okay, I'm not getting that load. Why am I not getting, when there was a valid reason I was having stuff explained to me. I mean, we're not idiots. You know, some people think we are, but I mean, we're not idiots. So, you know, like we know, you know, when you're being lied to by dispatch, you know, when you're being misdirected by your employer, you know, when you're being taken advantage of. And when those things stop happening, the pressure and the stress and feeling like you know, it changes. Everyone around you is safer, right? You're not mad. You're not driving angry. You're not, you know, call me in 50 miles. Remember those days? Oh, yeah. Start heading home and call me in 40 miles. You know, before we had cell phones, right? Friggin' late 80s, early 90s, couldn't afford a cell phone, you know, call me for, in 30 miles, call me in 50 miles, call me in 2 hours. Right. And it's like, wow. And,
Always a pay
just,
phone that was, you know.
uh-oh.
But yeah, as Victoria says, your boundaries are being met, so you're not resentful towards the
Yeah.
office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're
So
being treated, it 30 years of trucking. And it was only since I started with this company that anyone ever said, hey, thanks for doing that. Or thanks for putting in your week, it had
yeah,
just never happened before. Right. And you don't think about it until it happens. And you're like, wow.
yeah. So Dan, thank you very much for coming on and
Anytime, Dave.
agreeing to come on to the Crazy Canuck Trucking podcast. I want to remind everyone to hit the like and the subscribe and turn your notifications on. Check out Victoria's VIP's social media, Redesign Social. This is her job, is to promote different things. So if you need help with social media promoting, go to Redesign Social. For Size Matters, who couldn't be here with us today, we hope she's doing well. And thank you to everyone for following along with this.